What if the Earth stopped spinning? It sounds crazy, but let's imagine it together. One side of the planet in perpetual sunrise, the other plunged into endless night. Scorching heat on one side, freezing cold on the other. A world divided by extremes. How would we survive? What would become of the cities, forests, oceans? In this survival guide for the unimaginable, we'll explore every detail of this new reality, from immediate catastrophes to daring strategies to restart Earth's rotation. Get ready to discover the unthinkable and perhaps even learn how to survive the impossible. The first eternal morning. What an endless sunrise would feel like. Imagine opening your eyes and feeling as though the sun will never set. The clock would stop, and the sky would remain in a warm orange glow, like a dawn we only glimpse a few times in life. The concept of a never-ending morning stirs the senses, doesn't it? There would be no clear cycle of hours. Time would become a continuous line without nightfall to guide us. The familiar rhythm of the day, seeing the sun rise and later set, would vanish, along with our usual division between work and rest. It's easy to imagine the confusion. The human mind, so accustomed to the idea that everything passes, would have to adjust to the notion of that 6 a.m. sun being the same one throughout the entire day. Our bodies would feel the impact dramatically. Our circadian rhythm, which helps us rest and stay alert, would collapse, creating chronic fatigue with no promise of night to recharge. Each person would need to find their own time to rest, resisting the temptation to never stop. The situation would resemble cities that never sleep, like New York or Tokyo. But here, the entire world would become a global, sleepless city. Nature, with its age-old patterns of light and dark, would be in disarray, as though caught in a never-ending dream. It's a chilling yet fascinating idea, prompting each of us to imagine how we'd handle this first eternal morning. Immediate consequences. What would happen in the first seconds and minutes? In the first few seconds, a surreal calm would blanket the planet. At first, no one would notice Earth had stopped. After all, we don't feel the daily rotation. But within minutes, something disturbing would become apparent. The feeling that the sun had frozen on the horizon would leave people staring, bewildered by the lack of movement in the sky. This oddity would spread quickly, like a silent wave of tension. Within moments, the imbalance of winds and tides would begin to alter the atmosphere, creating an eerie calm before the literal storm. The effects would soon become obvious and devastating. The sudden halt in rotation would lead to massive instability in oceans and the Earth's crust. Imagine continents trembling slightly, and then giant waves rising in the ocean, crashing into coastal cities. It would be like a snapped rope releasing all its built-up tension at once. This would be the first of many signs that our now static planet would no longer follow the familiar rhythm we once knew. It's the chaotic introduction to a world about to undergo brutal transformations. Natural disasters, tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. With the planet motionless, the energy stored in Earth's crust and oceans would be released uncontrollably. Colossal tsunamis would sweep across vast coastal areas, especially those near tectonic plates. Imagine a wave as tall as a 30-story building, forming and devastating entire regions. It would be an apocalyptic scene, with the ocean seeming to swallow the land at once. These tsunamis, far more frequent, would leave no time for rebuilding, occurring in a continuous cycle. Without its spinning motion, Earth would also experience unprecedented seismic activity. Earthquakes would ripple across the planet, impacting areas that had always been calm. Places accustomed to peace would feel the ground shaking as never before. To add to the chaos, volcanoes dormant for millennia might awaken, spewing lava and ash into a sky without twilight to ease the view. This festival of natural disasters would recreate the planet in a new, brutal order, where nature would reign with unparalleled force. The climate in collapse. How extreme heat and cold would transform the planet, with one side of Earth locked under an unyielding sun and the other in perpetual darkness. The climate would fall into unprecedented chaos. The sunlit side would become a blistering desert, with temperatures reaching uninhabitable levels. Forests and rivers would slowly evaporate, while cities would turn into open-air furnaces. Imagine streets melting in the heat, buildings unable to withstand thermal expansion, and temperatures too high to cool down even at night. On the other side, extreme cold would freeze oceans and cover the land in ice. Temperatures would plummet to the point where the air itself would feel like sharp blades. This dark side would become an icy desert, with freezing winds that would make survival impossible without adequate shelter. These two extremes would create a planet with a totally polarized landscape. In between, a narrow twilight zone might offer moderate conditions, but even this strip would be subject to unpredictable temperature and climate shifts, constantly battling between heat and cold. Impacts on human life. Surviving in a world of extremes. Surviving on a planet of extremes would demand a new level of organization and adaptation. The most habitable areas would be scarce, and competition for these territories would increase rapidly. Imagine, each community would have to choose between living in a scorching desert, where water evaporates in minutes, or a frozen desert where survival is challenged by cold. Thermal, insulated shelters and highly equipped structures would become essential, creating small fortresses of life amid chaos. Health would be a monumental challenge. Respiratory illnesses would spread quickly, and the human body, unaccustomed to such extreme temperatures, would require constant support. In hot areas, hydration would be life or death, while cold areas would require special clothing and continuous heating. People would need to adapt quickly, inventing innovative ways to protect themselves, such as air filters for dry zones and insulation systems for extreme cold. This new reality would redefine resilience and societal structure. Agriculture and food supply, growing food without natural cycles. With the end of natural cycles, food cultivation would need to be reimagined. Without the day-night cycle, plants wouldn't grow as before, requiring technological solutions to provide light and heat in a controlled way. Agriculture as we know it would vanish. Artificial farms would emerge, with constant lighting and precise control over temperature and humidity. Imagine a cultivation system where every inch is calculated, with plants growing in sealed, sun-simulated greenhouses. Natural resources like water and minerals would become limited, driving people to invest in hydroponic and aeroponic methods. However, this would demand more energy and technology. Synthetic food production would also increase, particularly for alternatives to meat and protein. In this scenario, everyone would rely on controlled cultivation systems. Each meal would become a precious resource, and a new culture of conservation and total food utilization would arise. Survival technology, inventions and strategies for facing the new reality. Survival on a halted planet would demand a leap in technology. Solar and wind energy stations would become essential, but adapted to new climate conditions. On the blazing side, extreme cooling systems would protect people, while intense heating infrastructure would sustain life on the frozen side. Imagine fully automated homes for temperature control, with thermally adjustable walls and windows, shifting as needed. People would rely on insulating suits with special fabrics that shield against both cold and heat. These suits would become as common as everyday clothing, with the complexity of an electronic device. Transportation would change as well, with vehicles adapted for extremes, powered by clean energy and resistant to intense temperatures. In this new reality, every technological advance would be not just a luxury, but a necessity. Reorganizing society, new borders, cities, and territories. Given the new conditions, borders would reorganize around habitable areas. Neutral zones would form along the twilight strip where heat and cold blend, creating a relatively stable region. There, the new metropolises would arise, with cities built in underground shelters or protected by thermal barriers. Imagine one-sided cities, bordered by ice on one side and a scorching desert on the other. A unique blend of extremes forming a new kind of natural wall. New governments and organizations would emerge to manage these limited, resource-rich areas. Politics would revolve around access to these neutral zones, and international cooperation would become essential to avoid territorial conflict. These new cities would be designed for unique cohabitation, with clear limits and strict regulations to control resource use. Borders and territories would be redefined, changing the concept of community. Adaptation of flora and fauna, how ecosystems would evolve. Species around the planet would need to adapt or face extinction. On the hot side, plants and animals would evolve to withstand extreme heat. Giant cacti and trees with thick leaves to reduce water evaporation might dominate, while animals would seek shelter during the hottest hours. It would resemble a desert landscape, where creatures adapted to survive like camels and lizards dominate, while the cold side would host creatures adapted to freezing like polar bears and Arctic wolves. Plants on the frozen side would develop thicker leaves capable of storing nutrients for extended periods, while animals would adapt their feeding habits, seeking alternative heat and food sources. Earth would divide into two opposing biospheres, with each ecosystem functioning as an extreme microcosm. Natural evolution would be swift and intense, with survival hinging on radical adaptation. Restarting rotation, theories and ideas to try. Rebooting the planet. Humanity would explore various ways to restart the planet. Some theories might involve technologies like massive thruster systems to restore rotation, or even creating an artificial cycle of heat and cold. An intriguing idea could involve the use of giant space mirrors, reflecting sunlight to create warm zones in frozen areas. This would be a bold solution, as if humanity were playing God, but it would require monumental effort. Other studies might explore tidal forces and the moon's gravitational pull to attempt to spin Earth again, like a massive engine in need of a new push. The ideas would be daring, and technology would have to reach almost unimaginable levels to attempt any kind of restart. The challenge would be finding a balance point where Earth could resume its natural movement without sparking new disasters. This would be humanity's ultimate challenge, with engineering and science uniting in a final attempt to restore planetary balance. Did you enjoy exploring a world where the impossible becomes reality? If so, don't stop here. In our latest video, we discussed another intriguing idea. What if Earth had a secret twin in the solar system? The answer is just a click away and will spark your imagination. To continue this journey full of challenging questions and surprising answers, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any new episodes, and you'll keep expanding your knowledge about the universe.